This is Envision Self-Healing Podcast Episode 6. Hi, I'm Will Fuller.
And I'm Richard Miller.
And we are the co-creators of EnvisionSelfHealing.com and are dedicated to helping you improve your eyesight and quality of life
by taking healing into your own hands.
Today, we're talking about how peripheral vision and blood flow can improve your eyesight.
And in the second half of the podcast, we're going to be answering a question from a YouTube viewer who asks us why he is having flashes of clear vision.
Interesting, yeah, that's something that we tend to get from a lot of our viewers, isn't it?
Yeah, and our clients too.
You'll be pleased to know it's a positive thing.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that in the last section. But first, I want to find out, Richard, how's your eyesight been this week and your exercises?
Well, I've been continuing to look at my refrigerator. Every time I come up to it, I have my presbyopia chart to look at, so it's been getting better. I'm actually working my way down the chart. So last week I could get down to maybe the fourth line before it broke apart.
Okay.
So if people don't know the presbyopia chart, you're crossing your eyes. There's two charts, identical charts, and you cross your eyes and fuse one third chart in the middle.
Just so you know, you can find these charts on our website in the resources section.
And a video on how to do it in the exercises. So I've been fusing that one thing, and as I work my way down the chart, the fusion breaks, and they break into two charts again.
Okay.
But I've gotten down maybe two more lines than I had last week.
Excellent, wow.
Yeah. And walking down the street, I'm noticing, after I do this...
Okay. I'm away with this.
No, I'm not. And I'm not walking down the street with my eyes crossed. I think that would be too much.
Yeah.
I feel my two eyes working. It's a funny sensation. Most people have a dominant eye, and my right eye is quite dominant. After doing this, I do feel the left eye being active. It's a funny thing. It's like an awareness.
Yeah.
It's a shift in awareness, almost like suddenly you have a whole head or something. Like, you feel both eyes seeing at once.
Yeah.
And you don't notice this before, but suddenly it's a shift, and you feel like you're looking from your entire head as opposed to just one side. It's a funny feeling.
So. Yeah, I can't wait for you to make a movie about that.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm using my head. No, I feel very similar. I very much overuse my right eye because it's the one with the clearer vision in it, almost 20/20. So I certainly overuse my right eye, and my left eye is all, half of what it is in the right.
Right.
Now.
Right.
So I always feel my right working.
Yeah.
And then when I do exercises like this, like you say, or I do obstruction, then I get the same feeling of both eyes working at the same time.
Which is an odd feeling, ironically, that both eyes are working,
It's very similar to what we just did with a shoulder rotation exercise with the webinar, the online webinar we just did. When you rotate one shoulder, all of a sudden you become aware of that shoulder and you get more blood to it and all the rest of it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm becoming aware of my left eye, and suddenly it's a new feeling to feel balanced in the eyes.
I'd also imagine, sorry, that you're engaging both eyes, because you have to have both eyes in order for the fusion to take place. Right?
To do that chart, you have to really engage both eyes, and you're engaging the muscles of both eyes, especially the internal convergence muscles. But it's made me realize that I think I need to add to my program, rather than just sticking to the presbyopia charts, is I'm going to start adding in obstruction of my right eye more.
Oh, okay. So why would you do that?
It just feels like I need.
Why would you do that?
It feels like the one of the goals of presbyopia is to have the presbyopia exercises to have balance. The goal
of presbyopia
is to have
poor vision.
Both eyes fusing on one thing to really help presbyopia. And for me, I'm so right eye dominant because I have a large blind spot in my left eye. Mm-hmm. And ironically, my left eye is clearer than my right eye. This big blind spot in my left eye. So for me, that's the challenge, is to get me to use my left eye despite the big blind spot. I think it's actually going to help my overall vision and my presbyopia to bring in the left eye a little more.
So how much, for our listeners, how long do you think you're spending doing the convergence exercises?
Oh, I mean, I pause in front of the refrigerator maybe a minute.
Okay.
And do it, and then I work my way down,
Mm-hmm.
and then I go off and do something else, and then when I come back, I do it again.
So you're still looking at about maybe 10 minutes throughout the day?
Yeah.
And it's very important for you to realise that, not you, Richard, but the listeners, that you can break the exercises down like this.
Mm-hmm.
People say, oh, well, I don't have time just to sit there and do these exercises. But if you do like what Richard's doing and just break it into, minute intervals, it's easily accomplishable throughout the day.
Yeah, and then I fold up a copy and keep it in my pocket, so when I'm out, I can do that too. So
excellent.
Yeah,
that sounds like a good week.
Yeah. How about you?
I've a few pros and cons for me this week. I think so. I'll start with the con and then on a happy note. Is that I spent a lot of time this week doing research on my blogs. In particular, I did a blog this week on how nutrients can help improve your eyesight. So I spent quite a bit of time focusing on the computer, and you know how it is when you research, probably not for everyone researching eye stuff, but like Richard and I, we sort of get excited when we start finding all these studies and stuff. So we're moving from website to website, and probably within about an hour or two, I started feeling my eyes, how they were sort of working hard. But what had happened is the 2 days previous to it, I actually hadn't had time to do any eye exercises. And those of us that have listened to previous episodes, you'll know that at the moment I'm trying the tact of if I miss an exercise, if I miss a day, I'm trying to do an hour a day. Yeah. And if I miss that hour in that day, then back pay, what do you say, bank it.
This is the old PE teacher coming out in you, right? Except you have no kids anymore, so you treat yourself like you did.
Yeah. So, it's difficult when you shout at yourself to do press up.
You have a whistle, do you whistle yourself? Get to work!
Yeah, I don't have many friends. I just sit by myself and whistle at myself. But ironically, I just look normal in San Francisco. So I hadn't done a couple of days of eye exercises, and I could feel the strain starting to really build up in my eyes, whereas previously, the week before that, Richard and I was doing a lot of work planning and writing up all the work for our online webinar that we're doing at the moment. And I spent a whole day on the computer, and afterwards my eyes felt fine. And the next day, my eyes were fine because I was doing the exercises. Oh. And I first noticed this when I first was really trying to work hard with the exercise. I missed 2 days again. It was when it was the Super Bowl.
Right.
And I hadn't done eye exercises for a couple of days, and then we watched the Super Bowl. And after that, I noticed the same eye strain. And then after a few days after, I did the exercises regularly, and the strain slowly started to go away. So, and I've not had any strain since at all in my eyes until this point. So you could argue that it was the computer, but then you could also say that it was the fact that I didn't do the exercises. Now, what's interesting is I'm finding it a lot harder to build myself back down again, if that makes sense. Trying to reduce the strain is harder than if I had have just prevented it in the first place.
That makes sense, actually, yeah.
And it was quite the realization for me that the exercises aren't just about improving your eyesight. It's about one, preventing them from getting worse, but if you're thinking about strain, it's not just about getting rid of strain, it's being able to prevent the strain in the first place. And now, again, I'm doing quite a bit of research this week to go with my blog this week. And
we spent 2 hours talking about lutein and zeaxanthin.
And how it helps the macula on the juicing blog there.
Yeah, exciting phone calls between the two of us.
They are. Well, exciting for us anyway. Yeah. So you can see it in two different ways. One, that you're improving the sight, but also that it's going to help reduce that strain and keep it off. And I'm almost cursing myself every day because I'm now trying to get the work done, but I can feel that sort of basal level, that low level of strain still in my eyes.
Yeah.
And even if, say, I take a day off, it's like I need to. So now I'm doing, an extra hour of palming every day just to try and get myself back to that point. So that's encouraged me now to try and keep with the exercises, and because it's...
Yeah, I think you're completely right, because yesterday we worked until 9 o'clock trying to get ready for our webinar today, and my eyes were stinging by the end of that because we were working on the computer. And then today I did palming as a way of trying to backtrack away from that strain. But I hadn't done palming. Well, I did some yesterday, but not as much. So maybe that did lead to more strain, as you're saying.
Yeah, and I also realised that it's almost like an accumulation. Like if you did 7 days of 7 hours of great palming, then I would say that you could spend longer. It would take longer for that strain to come back.
Right.
If that makes sense.
It does.
So you could then spend that little bit longer on the computer. And we're not saying, just stare at the screen and, create eye strain. But certainly using the computer in a healthy way, it's sort of allowing you to use your eyes that much more.
Yeah.
So, I guess you could see that as a positive, because there's nothing worse than a lot of people, and how I was before was I just kept working through the strain and just... complained on just accused tiredness or the topic or whatever.
Right, and I know the two of us working together before, we might have gone that way 3 or 4 days and then try to work our way back to some relaxation. And
I would imagine if I'd kept going, that's when the headaches start, and that's when you really start feeling the strain. So trying to avoid that. But the other positive that I noticed just today was still with my central vision. I remember a few weeks ago I talked about how I had improved a line with my left eye, which is what has the cataracts and the macular hole in it, the pseudomacular hole. But again, today my eyes were still feeling quite fresh and things were seeming clearer. Richard and I have been doing a lot of work investigating this, the lutein and having a healthy central vision, and also fixation, which is part of what we're going to talk about at the end of today's session. And I noticed that I improved a couple more letters on the next line.
Wow.
So I've moved down onto the 2070 line, and I got a couple of letters on it. So 2060, because I did it on a 10-foot chart, because I know the 20-foot chart so well now.
Oh yeah, me too.
It's whether I know it or not, which is why it's good to try different ones.
Yeah.
So really pros and cons this week. Should get back on top of my eye exercises for next week.
Yep, sounds good.
So let's move on to topic of the week.
The topics this week are peripheral vision and blood flow, how we can improve both of them, and how they'll improve our eyesight in the process.
So these two topics are very close to our hearts because it's the rod cells in my periphery that are being affected, that's putting me at a disadvantage in being able to see in my surroundings and seeing in my periphery. And it's what the doctors say are degenerating, and eventually I end up with tunnel vision, and that I can never, get that peripheral vision back. So it's certainly a hot topic for myself. And also the blood flow with Richard.
Yeah, the blood flow for me is the main reason I have vision problems, because when in utero I had a lack of blood flow to my optic nerve, and some of the strands died off in my optic nerve.
And that's what those blind spots that you were talking about before in your left eye?
Exactly. It's sort of an enlarged... There's a normal blind spot at the back of the eye that most of us can't see. And because of the lack of blood flow, I have these enlarged blind spots in the back of my eyes.
So essentially, is your peripheral vision the same as somebody that doesn't have that condition?
Oh, that's always a hard thing to see through someone else's eyes.
Richard and I always joke that if we could combine our vision, we would have...
We made a very good vision, yes.
We would have the ultimate vision.
I think my peripheral vision is still compromised some.
Okay.
But because my central vision is more compromised, because the blind spots are right there near the central vision...
Okay.
Throughout my life I've had to use more of my peripheral vision. So I think the activity of it has made it pretty good for me, and I have good night vision for that reason. And see, again, if you had my peripheral vision, I had your central vision, we'd be in good shape.
We would be a mega human.
We would,
or just someone with normal eyesight.
With normal eyesight, which to us is a mega human, maybe.
Yeah. So as Richard said there, it allows him to see better in the dark. Now, the reason for that is the rods are responsible for two things. The first thing is that they're responsible for picking up low levels of light, around 1 photon. So that's about a candle.
I think it's a candle at a mile or something like that. Yeah. It's very small.
It's amazing, really, how much you can see in the dark with those rod cells. And the second thing is that they pick up movement. So if you just, say, wave your hands to the side of your head now, you would notice that movement. Now, that isn't your cone cells, which is the central vision, because the cone cells don't pick up movement. They're just responsible for fine detail and colour. So the rod cells are doing two things: movement and low-level light.
One of the main exercises we do for peripheral vision is the 3 sizes of paper, right? Which you can find on our website. I think we call it the peripheral vision exercise.
Yeah, and you can also, we've got 2 versions of it. One is during the day, where you just wave the hands to the side, and the other is to do it in the dark, because, you know, we just said there that your rods respond better in the dark. So those of you or people that have something like retinitis pigmentosa or even glaucoma, and you found that you're starting to lose those peripheral cells, then by doing it in the dark, they're going to be more responsive, and it's more effective to wake them up first in the dark.
Yeah, I mean, I'll describe the exercise briefly, but it's really better to go and look at the video. But it's basically a piece of paper that's maybe 1.5 inches square, something like that, and a second piece of paper that's maybe 4 inches by 1.5 inches, and a third piece of paper that's like 6 inches by 1.5 inches. And we put a piece of masking paper looped over, so it's sticky on both sides, in the very middle of each of these pieces of paper. And then we start with the small paper, put it on the bridge of your nose, and then you start waving your hands to the side to stimulate the periphery. And you start with the smallest paper, then you put on the medium-sized paper, and finally the large paper, continuing to wave to the side to stimulate the periphery. And then we then you have the large paper on, you palm briefly for a breath or two with the large paper on your face, your palms over the paper. And then you work your way back down the medium-sized paper and the small paper. As I say, go to the website and look at the video. It's the best way to learn the exercise.
And what you should notice is when you get back down to the smaller piece of paper, you'll be more aware of the world around you, because you've woken up those peripheral cells. Now, a great benefit of these exercises isn't just working the periphery, it's also resting your central vision.
Right.
So if you think about our everyday lives, we're really overworking our central vision and really underworking our periphery. So if you had, modern day Mike from our ebook, he's sitting there 8 hours a day working on the computer, and his whole world is a couple of feet in front of him, and probably no more than a foot in diameter, I would imagine, a foot wide. So this is his world, and everything else he's switching off because he has to, because he needs to focus on what's in front of him. So this means that he's underusing his periphery, and over time it becomes misused, and like anything with a body, if you don't use it, then you start to lose it.
The other reason we do this exercise is I had a client who has 10% cataracts, and then she's also has beginnings of glaucoma, so a bit of an elevated pressure. And she spends hours and hours on her computers. So one of the main exercises I gave for her was these 3 sizes of paper, keeping them next to the computer, and taking breaks from focusing centrally on the computer and putting on the 3 sizes of paper, taking that break, stimulating the periphery, to take the pressure off the central vision, which we think contributes to glaucoma and cataracts too. So,
excellent. So the second topic that we're going to be looking at is blood flow.
And that is a topic that's important to me, obviously. The blood flow is, in terms of the eyes, starts in the neck, in the carotid artery. The arteries to the eyes come right off the carotid artery. It's one of the first arteries off The arteries to the eyes are the first arteries off the carotid artery. So the carotid artery it lays on top of the esophagus in your neck. On both, there's one on each side. Right on top of the artery is the sternocleidomastoid muscle, which runs from the back of the ear down into the collarbone. And it's a very thick muscle. You can find it on your neck.
Yeah, I think if you just turn your head side to side, you might...
Yeah, it'll protrude.
It's pretty predominant.
Yeah, mine are very predominant because they're very tight. And that muscle is laying on top of the carotid artery. So our feeling is that if you can loosen the sternocleidomastoid or the SCM muscle, you're going to be relieving pressure on the carotid artery. Then the circulation is also restricted by the shoulders, and then circulation is restricted by facial tension as well. So we do head rotations, we do shoulder rotations, those are both on the website as well, videos on the website. And we do neck massage and face massage, all to loosen up the muscles in the neck, shoulders, and face to create more circulation to the eyes ultimately.
And you'll definitely feel a difference. We've not met anyone yet that hasn't done just a couple of minutes of head rotations, shoulder rotations, and a bit of neck and face massage and not felt better for it.
Right.
Afterwards.
Yeah.
And you'll feel more awareness and more alive in the face. You'll feel more warmth where you get more blood. But Richard mentioned there about how the shoulders also play a part in the blood flow. And remember that the muscles from the shoulder connect into, say, the back of the head and around the neck. So the shoulders are very much interconnected with the head, as is the whole body, really. If you've got tight hips and tight muscles in your legs, then that's also inhibiting good systemic blood flow, so blood flow that's moving all the way around the body.
Right.
So as much as you want to focus, as Richard just quite rightly said, on massaging the neck and the face to get more blood flow up there to the head, also try to think of this, as the whole body as a system. Right.
And we would recommend, there's a tennis ball massage. I think we have a video on the website as well. Yeah,
for the tennis balls for the back. We've got a couple, one for the foot, one for the legs, and then we've got one for the back that has a video.
Yeah.
So certainly go there and check it out, and you'll see that how loosening all the muscles all up in the back is going to help promote more blood flow around the whole body and up into the head and eyes.
Right. And I notice immediately with my condition, my optic atrophy, if I get a good massage or get exercise or do self-massage, I can see an increase in clarity.
And I get the same whenever I go for a run. Anyone that's following me on Twitter will see, or Facebook, every time I go for a run, I definitely comment and notice that I feel a difference.
You just run all the time.
Yeah. Some psychologists would have something to say with
that.
Yeah. You'll certainly has that blood flow. So light exercise, and that doesn't necessarily mean going for a long run or going down the gym and pumping weights. Just walking for half an hour a day, or just being active is enough to help bring more blood flow. So very important for overall health, and also fantastic for your eyes and bringing more blood.
Well, and ophthalmologists will agree with this, that blood flow is very key in a lot of eye diseases. So the more as we age, there's the danger of restricted, the hypertension, things like the high blood pressure, have all sorts of other consequences, but they're also affecting your eyes. So the more you can increase blood flow as you get older, the more you can avoid some of these serious eye diseases. So.
Excellent. So plenty of information there. I'm sure you're going to have to rewind and listen to some of that again. You can always find a lot of this information in our ebook that you can get for free on our website at envisionselfhealing.com, and you'll find a lot of this information written down there for you. So I think it's about a good time to head to the question of the week. So the question of the week this week comes again from one of our YouTube viewers. We're getting some fantastic questions through YouTube of late. Keep them all coming in. That's great. And they say, when I was about 6th or 7th grade, I had 20/20 vision. But as time went on, I watched TV up close, and I wore glasses for around 3 months, and I hated it.
I hated my glasses too.
yeah. Well, I lost them most of the time. So
yeah.
And sat on them. I think my parents hated them.
I sat on my glasses a lot too.
So he says, but I found you guys, and I'm really glad I did, because it does help, and I have been watching your videos too. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. It's
Yeah.
nice to get some good feedback. But when I do the exercises, and he means their eye exercises, I start to see clear. But when I blink a couple of times, it goes away. When I say clear, I mean about 20/20 vision. Then I blink and my eyes get watery and it gets blurred again. Can you please help? Thank you. So thank you very much there for that question. It's sort of a short answer and a very long answer.
Complicated long answer. Yes.
But obviously we're short on time. So we're going to give you the medium length.
All right. So to begin with, when you do vision improvement exercises, you do get these flashes of clear vision.
Yeah.
And that's normal. It's moments when you've completely relaxed and you're seeing very naturally in a relaxed way, then you have clear visions.
Remember that the eye wants to see. Like everyone's so against the eye.
Yeah.
And get so frustrated with their eye, but the eye wants to see clearly. That's its job, and that's what it wants to do. So we feel that when you finally relax and just let the eye do its job and let it do what it wants to do, then the clear vision comes through.
Well, and I think it's partly we want to force the eye to see. We want to take control and see,
Yeah.
And so that leads to staring and strain and all of those negative things that are against relaxation. So that's actually in our modern world our normal state, is forcing ourselves to see and taking control and seeing. So actually in these relaxed moments we kind of let go of that intention.
Yeah.
But it's short-lived.
It is because even if you just take the example of what I was talking about there with the strain on the computer and palming, it's accumulative. If you're doing the exercises and you get those little flashes of vision, and that's excellent, and it really shows that you're going in the right direction.
Right.
And if you're not having the flashes of clear vision, don't worry. It's something that sometimes people experience. I don't experience flashes.
No, I get that all the time.
But then it's probably more to do with the individual, maybe in their condition.
Yeah.
Certainly with me. But the flashes mean that you are going in the right direction, and instead of trying to hold on to that flash,
right,
which is difficult because it's called a flash, which means it's short-lived. Instead of holding on to it, just be happy that you still have that potential for that clear vision.
Right.
It shows that you can still see the 20/20 line, something that all the eye doctors would say is impossible.
Right.
And you've just proved to yourself that your eye can see that clear, and that's what it wants to see.
All right. So now here's the medium level answer. It's a little more complicated, which is the eye was designed to see quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And in a relaxed and quickly.
Yeah.
And we're doing the opposite. We're straining, and we want to stare at something and hold it and fix on it for a long time.
Definitely.
So the other reason that his vision went to blurry was he was trying to fixate on it, and stare at it and hold it, as opposed to just glancing at it, seeing clearly, and moving on.
So if you think how the eye naturally works, last week we talked about the macula, and in the macula you have the fovea, which is responsible for seeing 100% acuity. It's where all the cones are, and you can really see clearly in that one spot, but it's a very tiny spot. It's about 1% of the retina and about 3% of your whole visual field.
Yeah.
So when we get something that they call a line of sight, which means that when you're able to fixate on something, say you're looking at a clock and you're looking at the number 1, then that number 1 is going to come in clear when you're looking at that 1 point. Right, because it's matched up. Now, if you keep just staring at that one place, then the vision starts to become blurry, because the eye was designed to move rapidly, what they call saccadic movements.
Right.
And it sort of keeps the image alive, and it keeps the image focusing on the fovea as the eye moves around, and it's sending all those detail images to the back of the eye and to the brain, so that you then see the image clearly.
Right. So partly these flashes are, say you're looking at that letter 1, you're in a relaxed state.
The letter 1?
The letter 1?
I do that all the time.
The number 1 on the clock.
The letter O on the number 1.
The number 1 on the clock. Your eye is in a relaxed state. It glances up, sees the 1.
Yeah.
It's clear. And then you're supposed to move on. But what we do is 1. We're staring at it, and then the strain starts, and then it gets blurry.
Exactly. And there's a lot of reason why you get that strain, and we're not going to it now. But just think of it when you're just trying to read something, you're just solely focused on that one spot, and you're so intent on gaining all the information from it. So we're used to this very fixed stare, and it's sort of the opposite of what the eye wants. The eye wants to be relaxed and just move around freely and just sort of pick up the detail that it wants to pick up. So we could go into a lot more detail in that, but we want to save that for another time, and also we're trying to keep our podcast down to half an hour so people can use them for their palming, and heaven forbid we make somebody palm a few more minutes than they should be.
That's right.
But the other part of it that we're going to at a later date is to do with the ciliary body and the lens, and how to look in the distance and see clearly is to have a flat lens. And so when we relax, then those muscles relax and the lens goes flat, and it enables you to see for a second.
By the end of these podcasts, you'll understand fixation, accommodation, the ciliary body. Oh my God, you'll be silly about the ciliary body.
You'll be as geeky as us that would actually even come up with the term silly about the ciliary body.
There you go.
So anyway, I hope that helps a little bit more insight into the flashes, and that also explains a little bit why the blinking would also break the stare, because blinking actually breaks staring, which is why we recommend it so much for you to do naturally, because it stops you from staring. And the individual that's experiencing this, he's finding that when he blinks it goes away, and that's because you're breaking that fixation, that stare.
Yeah, I think the overall thing I'd like to say is that try to think of clear vision as being very momentary, that you're not supposed to be fixating on something and forcing it to be clear, that it's supposed to be sort of a dance. Your eyes are supposed to be dancing around the world, taking in information in little clear flashes, really.
Yeah.
So,
and certainly if you're unsure about this, just go online and just look for Google images, the macula, and you'll see how it's this tiny spot at the back of the eye. And that's really where you're getting this clear vision. So you're just trying to move that little spot around, and it makes up your clear world.
Yeah.
So I hope you've all enjoyed all that information there on this week's episode. We know it's a lot, but we certainly know that our listeners appreciate it, and you guys have got a lot to learn over the coming months. So we're trying to get as much information across to you as possible. As always, you can head over to our website and download our free ebook, A Modern Day Guide for Improving Eyesight, that has a lot of this information in there, and it gives you a good background on how natural vision improvement can help reduce the strain and also help improve your eyesight in general. You can also check out Richard and I's individual blogs that we do weekly, where we go into a little bit more depth. For example, I'm going to cover this fixation again this week.
You're fixated on fixation.
I am. I really am fixated on it. That's why I've got so much eye strain. So you can check out those blogs there. And of course, you can always make comments on the bottom of this blog post, or you can always send us an email at envisionselfhealing@gmail.com. So, good luck with your exercises this week. We look forward to catching up with you next week, and happy healing.
And have a good week.